Welcome everyone to this week's Mutant Meetup call. Little change of pace this week, so we've changed the time to 9 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. UTC to accommodate some of our schedules while we're traveling. Yeah, I have quite a bit to go over this week, so I'll jump to the agenda slide. Just a quick note that I'm sharing the slides right now, but you can also find the slides and the resources for today's call in the thread that's in the Community Calls text channel as well. But yeah, on today's call, I'm just going to do an overview of the Nexus Hubs V2 proposal. I talked about this briefly last week, but I wanted to do kind of an overview since this is a bigger one that's going to go up for vote later today. And then we'll run through the updates for the week. We'll hear from Hugh, and he'll share with us his weekly core team update. I'll go over the last week in review for cover sales. I'll review the active coverage by cover type, and then I'll do a review of a couple of the votes that are currently live on Snapshot as well. So a pretty governance heavy week. So I'll jump right into things and talk about the Nexus Hubs V2 proposal. This itself is a restructuring proposal and a 6-month budget request. When we were working on this together, because quite a few contributors within the Nexus DAO put this together and worked on this. The idea is to streamline the existing model that we have, which we started using last year with the first hub going live in August and the second one being officially ratified in early November. And so we wanted to streamline some of the processes and take some of the lessons that we've learned to make these hubs more efficient. We also wanted to add a couple areas of focus for the existing hubs. These are areas that kind of fit within their general mandate, but we wanted to define those. And we wanted to kind of start outlining how anybody can launch a new hub or propose that discussion on the forum and go through those steps. And we're also working on creating a community website to launch in the near future. This will be hosted on Notion. It'll have resources about the hubs. We'll have transparent reporting for each hub, and just give people insight into what we're doing, how the DAO is structured, and how you can get involved and contribute. So if you have skills that you want to contribute to the community, you can find a relevant hub. If one doesn't exist, you can work with others and form a hub as well. So these are some of the things that we wanted to define to encourage more people to contribute to the DAO. And the goal of the DAO is to have more members get deeply involved by contributing to a working group. So there might be a working group that forms underneath the hub or starting a brand new hub itself for some area that we're currently not covering. We also wanted to unify the mission and the values for the DAO. And this is something that we've talked about at length, and we talked back and forth about, and I think all of the contributors, including myself, settled on a mission to build an ecosystem in which anyone can protect anyone else by sharing risk. In V2, the marketplace is going to be the the unifying thing that connects people together. So risk assessors and members looking to buy cover can kind of meet and match up within that marketplace. And we can work and expand and have more inclusive coverage over time. And then we just define some of the values that we want to inform the way we work within the DAO. So the values that we've settled on reflect kind of where we've come from and where we want to go as well. So being trustworthy, egalitarian, and having integrity. So I've defined those here as well, but you can also find those on the forum. So with that being defined, I can jump into each relevant hub. So with the Nexus Communications Hub, we've changed things. So we used to refer to this as mutant marketing, but some of the changes is broadening the scope of this hub, since a lot of what we've been doing is focusing on broader communications across the mutuals channels, doing marketing to promote growth in sales and membership, and then community management and community engagement across some of the existing channels that we have. So building out an audience on LinkedIn, building out the audience that we have on Reddit, and facilitating discussions and answering questions here in Discord and on Twitter as well. The mission of this hub is to provide tools and resources to members, syndicates, and DAOs and our wider community in order to expand coverage. Right now, we're working on a branding refresh, channel analysis, developing syndicate resources, and creating a publishing platform that we can have a podcast on and a blog and kind of building out from there. Within the branding refresh, we have a website refresh that we're working on a larger branding refresh with some of our key visuals, and then doing a channel analysis to see what is currently working across our social channels and how we can better engage and reach with people as well. For the syndicate resources, one of the things that we have in our budget is funding for technical writing services. So we've brought on FrindleDAO to help us with the Nexus V2 documentation, and we'll use that to inform the syndicate resources that we'll create as well. And then once the website's done and we start working towards some of our other goals, we'll focus on creating that publishing platform so we can have more content about risk and just get more things out there so we can attract more risk experts to build with us within the marketplace and to expand the kind of coverage that we can offer as well. So one of the big changes that we're looking forward to is creating an in-house marketing agency. And this would be something that can serve the syndicate network. Because we're going to have people building on top of the mutual, we can offer some base services, but if people want more in-depth services to have, road to market strategies or to better engage and reach their audience, we can do that for a reasonable fee, and some of the revenue we can generate there would offset our treasury spend over time and make Nexus Communications a little bit more self-sustainable and also allow us to build up funds for things like sponsoring, being sponsor at a conference or doing certain community offsite events for members, things of that nature. So maybe making some cool merch in the future. And the 6-month budget request, which we have a detailed breakdown on the forum as well, is roughly $204,000. Again, you can look at all the team members, all of the allocations and everything that's all on the forum. And I'll move on to Nexus Investment. So Nexus Investment is the investment hub. They've been working and advising on Treasury, capital pool investment allocation, and they've been reviewing things. There are a couple of proposals that are up on the forum that we're just waiting for some technical aspects to get solved so that we can actually put those up for votes. But a lot of what they've been doing is advising on how we can have more investment income generated into the capital pool over time. One of the things that they're going to add on is treasury management to their mandate. So if we can earn on some of the assets that we have in the community fund in a safe way to offset some of our operational expenses, that would be great. They're also overseeing the tokenomics revamp that is happening right now. So there is that tokenomics working group that's working on changes to the tokenomics bonding curve. And so they're overseeing that as well. Their priorities are investing more of the capital pool in ETH staking solutions. There's that proposal on the forum for allocating ETH to StakeWise. Another priority is rebalancing assets and liabilities. We've talked about this previously, but we have liabilities in ETH and DAI, but there's kind of a skew more toward DAI. So reviewing what our asset and our current assets and liabilities are and how we can better balance that, as well as, like I said, investing the Nexus Treasury, which we've referred to before as the community fund. So in their budget request, they have a request for a 6-month budget of $75,000 with retroactive back pay for roughly $50,000. So their quarter, their 6 months of funding ended in early May. So some of the contributors there have been contributing, working on some of the things that you can see on the forum, working on the tokenomics. And so that retroactive back pay would be compensation for them for the work that they've already completed. Again, there's a really detailed breakdown of this on the forum. And then for the flow of funds, for approved funding, this will be managed via a multi-sig for each hub. And so we'll manage payments for contributors via Utopia. Nexus Communications has been using Utopia for, I think, the last month or so. It's been really great so far. And so this is something that we'll be using across the hubs. to streamline payments, to have greater transparency because there's a nice bookkeeping feature there. And when funds flow from the Nexus Treasury, they'll go into these respective multi-sigs. We've proposed signers for both of these multi-sigs right now, which is Kaylee, Dopey, and myself. Dopey is the proposed head of investments, and then I am the proposed head of communications. And then Kaylee is kind of our global coordinator. So Kaylee does a little bit of everything within Nexus, but she's been a really integral player within the things that we've done within the DAO and kind of getting things on track and building out more resources for members and everything. So those are the 3 people that are proposed as multi-sig signers. So the overall review process that we've proposed in this in the Nexus Hubs V2 proposal would be to have hub reviews that occur every 6 months. This will be published as part of the next cycle's budget proposal. We'd have this hosted on the respective Notion page that'll be available for each hub. Again, that's part of the community website that we're building. The budget will be detailed within the proposals, and then we'll include this with our 6-month review. Similar to what we've done this time around, having a really detailed budget that breaks down contributors, payments, and has an explanation for the justification for the funding. And then our request for the next 6 months in total is $329,512. And I've got a little breakdown here of the total funding requests. This is, again, detailed in the forum as well. So this proposal is going to go live on Snapshot today at 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UTC. This will be open for 5 days. The voting options are to approve the budget request or to not approve the budget request. And you can find this in the announcements channel. I have it in the community calls channel as well. But yeah, so this is going to be for funding for the next 6 months and to approve some of the changes and restructuring that we have within the hubs. So happy to take any questions on this before I move on, if there are any. If anybody does have questions, feel free to ask them in voice, or you can ask them in the community calls text channel as well. Okay. If not, I will move on to the next slide, and I will hand things off to Hugh to give his weekly core team update. Hugh?
Cool. Thanks, Lee. Hey, everyone. Hope you can hear me all right. Thanks for allowing the reschedule of this one. I'm in Australia for the next little while, so this time is slightly better than an hour later. Cool. So, yeah, I guess in terms of core team update, yeah, major stuff we're working on, obviously V2. We've got the audits back now, working through the findings and increasing test coverage and stuff like that. And also progressing through the UI build. It's likely that we're going to release with, we'll come back when we have a good solid idea on actual timing for release. But just in terms of the UI, we're likely to release with with a version that does all of the basics, but perhaps not some of the extra features that are available at the smart contract level, and then we'll add them in over time so we can get to launch a bit earlier. So that's all going quite well. Just want to make sure we obviously get things right from a security point of view. So we're working through that stuff now. So that's going quite well. I guess the other kind of more imminent change is the Maple investment and the investment hub. So it's been kind of we've been working on that for a little while. Basically, have had to focus on V2 for a little bit. So it has taken us a little bit longer to do the smart contract development work required to make the investment. But that's currently in audit at the moment. All being well, then I guess we're aiming for the proposal to go on chain. So this would be a full on-chain governance proposal rather than via Snapshot because it's a smart contract upgrade. And we're aiming to do that maybe next week. So we'll see how it goes, but that's the current plan. And that would be check out the forum for that, for allocating funds to Maple via Enzyme. So we set up an Enzyme vault, and then essentially that they manage the process to get the rewards and also sell the MPL rewards every now and then. So it's all the details are on the forum, but worth having a look at that one perhaps when you have a look at the other snapshot votes that are going up. So that'd be great. Again, another allocation of the investment pool. Obviously, all those essentially earnings go to the members, staying within the capital pool. On other things, we're making quite good progress in terms of BD pipeline on the staking cover. So having lots of really good conversations, and obviously going live with Stakewise being a great step forward, and kind of leveraging that with several other conversations. So that's got a very strong pipeline there that we're working through, which is also really good news. And also a lot of inbound off the back of the announcements. So there's definitely interest for this type of stuff, and I fundamentally believe like there's a lot of capital sitting on the sidelines that's waiting for certain things to de-risk, like one being, I guess, the merge, and potentially then withdrawals being enabled. Who knows exactly when that might happen, but 6 to 12 months post-merge, and also slashing risk being one of the key ones there. So once we can kind of help tick one of those boxes from a risk point of view, I can kind of see a lot more capital flowing into the Ethereum ecosystem. So hopefully we can help support that and also benefit more widely from the kind of merge narrative that's probably coming up with things obviously on mainnet. So I think that's pretty exciting. Then I guess the other things we've been doing are talking to potential syndicate operators for kind of line-up launches with V2 or soon thereafter to get them up and running. And so doing a bit of hand-holding on certain things and explaining to people how it's going to work and how they can run businesses. So that's pretty good as well. And I think Lee's going to get to this one a bit later, but one of the proposals I'm quite excited about is the boot node one, which is about building starting with doing this scoping work for a covered vault, which is one of these kind of product features that's always been on our roadmap for quite a while. But I think it's going to be really great from a product point of view, where essentially the Yearn Vault or something like it can buy coverage from the yield and automatically on all the users in the vault. And so from a product perspective, it's really helpful because it means that the users can just deposit into a covered vault or a non-covered vault, and then they don't have to worry about purchasing coverage, etc. It's managed on behalf of them. Gas is socialized. There's a whole bunch of really cool benefits with it. So they're doing some scoping work about how they build that on top of V2. One of the great things about the bootnode team is they've got a decent understanding of the V2 smart contract system, because they also did the generalized swap operator, which is being released as part of V2 as well. So they're a great team. They've been working quite well with them as the kind of core team. So yeah, I think those are the major pieces. We're also kind of helping out on the tokenomics side of things. I'm having some more discussions there, and it's progressing quite well. I guess next steps on that are check some technical details just to make sure that the kind of straw man design we have at the moment can be implemented is feasible from a technical point of view, and then once we kind of confirm that or not, then we'll come back to the kind of wider community and kind of present a proposal to kind of a more solid proposal that people can go through and have discussions on. So there's not imminent, I would say, but we're working through that, and some decent progress is being made. Behind the scenes. So I think those are pretty much the key things going on. Happy to take questions as usual.
All right. If anybody has any questions and they can't speak or don't want to speak, they can always use the community calls text channel as well. If we don't have any questions, I can move on and do a review of the last week in cover sales. If anybody does have any questions in the interim, just feel free to interrupt me or drop a comment in the community calls text channel, and we can definitely get an answer for that. But yeah, so I'll do a review of the last week in cover sales. You can find all of this data on the Nexus tracker as well. So in the last week, fewer cover sales than the week before. We saw a total of 9.2 million in cover sold, and Mutual brought in $47,094 in premiums earned. Some of the largest cover buys that we had were for Convex Finance, Curve, and FTX. And then, of course, some of the other ones we saw were for Aave, Coinbase, and Crypto.com. This week, the DAI denomination, ETH denomination split, it was back toward DAI, with the DAI denomination for cover sold being roughly 86, ETH denomination being roughly 14, premiums earned being primarily DAI with 91%, and ETH denomination being about 9%. Yeah, so I think as yields trend upward, we'd see more in terms of protocol cover or custody cover buys, but I think in the interim, looking for more ETH2 staking cover buys as BD progresses with those will be good as well. But I'll dive into the active coverage by cover type. Again, all of this can be found in the Nexus tracker. So looking at active custody cover policies, there's 23,478 ETH worth of coverage across all policies, and roughly 39.7 million in active cover across all the custody cover policies. Some of the biggest ones are for FTX, Yield App, and Nexo. Crypto.com, Holdernot, and BlockFi are kind of on the downtrend, and then some smaller allocations to some of the other custodians there as well. But yeah, so we've seen a lot of strong cover buys for Yield App and FTX and Nexo increasingly lately. And then we have for active protocol cover policies, almost 114,000 ETH exposure, but 113,977 ETH. And in dollar terms, as of, I think it was Monday when I put these together, 192.9 million in active cover across all protocol cover policies. So again, some of the largest exposure we have is Enzyme V3 and Anchor, but there's not really any chance of that being claimed on, as Enzyme V3 was purchased by Celsius, and there's not really much in terms of TVL and Anchor. Convex Finance V1, Curve All Pools, and Aave V2, Liquidity, Yeti Finance, Angle, Gnosis Safe, and DYDX Perpetual. These are some of the larger ones that are up over or close to 5,000 ETH, and then kind of a smattering of different protocol cover policies from there. So still the most active cover that we have is for protocol cover. Active yield token cover is 3,903 ETH, almost 3,904, and about 6.6 million in active liabilities. So we can see the largest one that we have again this week is Convex 3 Curve, with Yearn, YV, Curve, ST ETH being second, and then some of the others there as well. And then for ETH2 staking cover policies, still those two Stakewise policies, and that is roughly worth 9.2 million, or 5,438 ETH. So solid active cover. Again, you can find all of that on the Nexus tracker as well. I will move on, and I'll just do a review of the Snapshot votes that are live as well. So we had a couple votes that went live yesterday. These were things that have been on the forum. One of them is for the Nexus Treasury Multi-Sig. So Krugman had requested to retire as one of the signers. And so there was a proposal on the forum. You can find that in the thread for today's call as well. And in that thread, or in that forum discussion, originally Dopey had proposed himself as the replacement, but there were a couple community members that had nominated me, and so I said that I'd be happy to be a signer, and that is the proposal that's currently up. So you can see all of the Multi-Sig signers on that forum proposal as well, but there is a total of 7 signers. So The original structure was 1 team member, 3 VCs, and then 3 community members. So since Krugman was one of the community member allocations, I would be taking his spot as one of the community member signers. So you can look at that full proposal, but essentially this one is just to add me as a replacement for Krugman or to not add me as a replacement. This one is also going to be open until the 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UTC. And then we have the forum proposal for the boot node grant. So I talked about this a little bit last week. You can review this on the forum as well, but like you said, this one is pretty exciting. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the ERC 4626 standard, it makes integrating with other protocols a lot more simple. And currently, if you're trying to do an integration with another protocol because you want to have greater composability, it can be different to achieve some of these integrations. So this token standard allows for easier integrations across different protocols, greater composability. And so with this, BootNode has requested the grant to start the process of designing this ERC 4626 compliant covered vault. As Hugh said, this would be something like a Yearn vault or any yield-bearing strategy vault that somebody would deposit funds into. And it would natively take some of that yield and use that to buy coverage across the board for those in the vault. So if the total amount of cover for that vault was capped at something like 50 million, then you could deposit in there up to 50 million, and that yield would be used to buy coverage over time. So the people in the vault would always be covered. And with this, it eliminates the need for individuals to buy coverage. They can just choose between a covered vault and a non-covered vault. This is something that's very exciting because this would just simplify the process of getting covered. And this would make the claim process easier. It would just kind of streamline the whole thing. So you can look through the proposal on the forum, but I've outlined that in the snapshot vote as well. The idea here is to do this in 3 separate phases. So this proposal would be the first phase. And the first phase is to define the scope of the project and plan things out. So this would be going through and looking at the business, functional, and technical requirements, doing an analysis on those, doing a feasibility assessment, setting out some specs for the project, planning things out, figuring out the timeline to completion for these things, and then creating a prototype if there's time within that 5-week timeline. The second phase would be starting to develop this, create an architecture for the design, spec out the UX and UI, kind of figure out what is needed in terms of infrastructure, and then have this plan that they can set out. And the third one would be actually getting into the nitty-gritty part of the development with the smart contracts being created and then deployed for testing, and then going through and working with the team to have something that is finalized that can be used by anybody who wants to have a natively covered vault. So this is a pretty comprehensive proposal. They've outlined all of the milestones that they're looking for, the roadmap, the timeframes, the budget for this is going to be 32,000 USDC for this first phase. And for those of you who aren't familiar, we've worked with BootNode in the past for the MEV protected swaps for the capital pool. That was the cow swap integration, which is being audited and will launch when V2 goes live. And I recommend everybody read through this proposal. I think it's a really detailed, really great proposal, and I'm really excited for this. This would be a way for us to cover more people and kind of remove some of the complexity of having to buy cover. And if you're somebody who has maybe a smaller amount of funds, let's say like 10,000 that you want to deploy into a vault, this would also socialize gas costs quite a bit and make coverage more accessible to more people within DeFi. So this vote is live right now. This will be live until the 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UTC. And the voting options here are to approve the grant request or to not approve the grant request. But yeah, I'm really excited for this as well. I think this is going to be a big step for the mutual, and this is something that I'm excited for the Bootnode team to take on, since we have a limited amount of engineers on the team. I know that we're looking to bring on more and expand our team, but having somebody help us with this will be huge and will help us kind of expand coverage in the medium term. So, any questions about either of these proposals? At this point, it's kind of the open forum where anybody can ask questions or bring up anything that we haven't covered. Really, if there's anything that we haven't touched on, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask those now. But if there's anything I can clarify about the proposals, just let me know.
Hey Lee, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. Yeah, very happy about all the things that are going on, both from the core team and the community. So there are a lot of funding requests going on. So it's a good thing we have a solid community fund. Just wanted to discuss about the proof of work fork of Ethereum. I don't know if you've read my forum post. But basically, yeah, I like us to discuss if there is a proof of work fork of Ethereum, what are we going to do with the funds? Should we be like fast? Should we act fast? Should we do nothing? What do you think?
I can jump in here. After living through the ETC fork back way back when, I personally think, well, we can only really, we basically just have to choose proof of stake Ethereum, and so the question is what we want to do. Say a proof of work fork actually gets some level of traction, then we're going to have basically a chunk of ETH on the forked chain, on the proof of work fork, that is potentially worth something. I would assume that the staked ETH that we have in the pool and any DAI we have in the pool is basically worth nothing. And so I guess from my perspective, I think what we should do is be prepared to basically send the funds to a trusted address, because the only way you're going to be able to dispose of those assets is on a centralized exchange, so you can't do it via DEX or anything. And so you, essentially what you probably do is send the ETH, be ready with a smart contract upgrade that sends the ETH to a trusted address, who then puts it onto a centralized exchange, transfers it to, say, Ether on the Ethereum main proof of stake chain, and then takes it off and perhaps puts it in the community fund, and then we can decide what to do from there. That would be my default. I don't think there's any. I think the whole of DeFi won't work pretty much on the proof of work fork. I think it'll all just crash because all the assets are not going to be worth, like a whole bunch of the assets are not going to be worth anything, or stables aren't going to be worth anything, etc. So yeah, that's my default assumption. Yeah, happy to hear others' views on this.
Oh yeah, I share exactly the same view as you. So yeah, cool that we can agree on that. My second question was then, what do we do? How do we proceed? Should we hold like a community vote for, like, I guess it's good practice. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the ideal thing is if we have a vote beforehand, then at least we kind of have agreement that that's what we're going to do. And I think probably the easiest thing to do, given that it's likely to be a quite chaotic time period, would be to have a community vote to grant authority to, say, the advisory board or some other, doesn't have to be the advisory board, could be someone, to actually take these actions on behalf of mutual members, because you're not going to be able to do it in a fully trusted way, and so you are essentially going to have to trust someone to bridge it to an exchange, etc. So we'd have to upgrade the smart contracts on the proof of work fork, and so we probably need to have something kind of basic, at least thought about there, so we know how to do it. I think we can do it quite easily based on, we've done some other stuff before, so it shouldn't be too hard. The biggest, we just have to be very careful, because otherwise you can do a replay transaction on mainnet and get the people. That'd be weird and security issues, so we just have to be careful of a few things. But yeah, I kind of think we should do a community vote to kind of agree on that general path forward, and then essentially the trusted group can then take those actions if it turns out that situation eventuates.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree totally.
Cool, makes sense. I mean, Lee, I know we can. It's probably worth, I'm not quite sure. I haven't heard your post yet, but I'll get on that. And I think we probably should just follow the normal comment process and review, and then we can put it to a snapshot vote. But yeah, we're happy to help through that process.
Yeah, I think for this one, sharing some of those views on the forum and laying out the next steps would be helpful. And then this one is kind of a strange in-between of being not quite the community fund, right? So it's kind of it's somewhere between a snapshot vote and an on-chain vote. So we need to kind of figure that out since this is a unique proposal. But yeah, absolutely. I think just having some comments like you've shared, Hugh, but on the forum, and then defining what the next steps are and when this goes up for vote. So that's something we can likely review on the call next week as well. But yeah, happy to talk with you, Gauthier, about that for the next steps for this proposal, and Hugh as well. But yeah, we'll get that figured out and then figure out a way forward.
Cool.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions from anybody else? Okay. I will take the relative silence as a no. So I will move on and close out the call for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for joining us at this earlier time. We'll be at this time for a good chunk of August. When we change back to the 10 a.m. call, I'll let everybody know. Be sure to review those proposals that are on the forum and are currently on Snapshot. Have a review and then vote on those based on the opinions you form. And I see Butter is typing, so I'll wait really quick. Won't USDC be a better DAI alternative? In terms of what, Butter? Is something that's held on the capital pool? Then converting through a sec. I think the point that Hugh is making on this is that USDC and DAI and those assets on the proof of work fork won't be worth anything. So really the only way to sell ETH from the proof of work fork would be through a SEX, because there's really going to be nothing that's going to work in any DeFi application on the proof of work fork. So that's why there's not really a trustless way to execute that swap. And if I have that wrong, let me know. But there's just no way to do that, unfortunately.
No, indeed, you're right. And I think there is also issues with all the oracles on the new chain.
Yes.
Yeah, there's issues with absolutely everything on the new chain. The only thing is, like, the Ether on the proof of work chain may have some value, and then the only way you actually get it off that chain is there are no bridges, so you have to go via a centralized exchange. So that I think maybe there's some residual value somewhere and some other stuff, but I would just assume that the only thing that has any chance of getting any value is really the Ether that we.
Yeah, it's when it does happen, if there is that fork, it's probably going to be pretty chaotic. So it'll be like that scene from Twister where they're trying to get in underneath the house before the tornado comes. So it'll be really interesting when it happens. So having a plan in place ahead of time and trying to capture some of that value is something that will be on the forum, and we'll talk about that ahead of a vote as well. But yeah, anyways, so thank you again for joining us. We'll see you on the call next week. But I hope everybody has a great rest of their day and a wonderful rest of their week. We'll talk to you all a little bit later.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.